So, young Pharaoh and Mr. Vegas had a live stream night before last, and in this situation, Mr. Vegas had an opportunity to speak to a larger platform and to discuss the Gino Jennings incident, right? And I thought it was a fitting channel for him to discuss it on because young Pharaoh is also interested in the counterculture. He's against the status quo in some respects. So when Mr. Vegas went on his show, I thought it was a good look for him to actually engage a broader platform, a larger audience, to let the people know what took place in the Gino Jennings first church debacle. Because, really it demonstrated some of the issues that we are faced with in the modern church environment, in which our people are heavily brainwashed. They can be talked to and disrespected in any kind of way as long as a person makes a few references to the Bible. Then they can be disrespected. As I told y'all in a video recently, Mr. Jennings called all women who wear makeup, short dresses, and various types of apparel, even fingernail polish. He called them whores and he called them prostitutes. And the climax of this issue was when they actually physically assaulted Mr. Vegas. As I said before in my video, they picked up Mr. Vegas like a rag doll, hoisted him in the air against his will, because Vegas was protesting. I don't want y'all to think that Vegas is a pushover now. The first person put his hand on Mr. Vegas brushed their hand off. And then the second person tried, he brushed that person's hand off too. But when the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh began to grab at him, I believe Scatterbarrel was in the crowd, and he tried to defuse the situation. But it really was too late. By the time the seventh and eighth person began to grab Mr. Vegas, he was already in the air. And honestly though, that was the fastest I ever saw somebody removed from a stage. That's like Showtime at the Apollo, right? Because usually the Sandman comes with that hook and he pulls the person off of the stage on the Apollo Theater. But in this case, it was like vigilante justice. They picked up Mr. Vegas, took him out of the assembly hall, right? And like I said, while he was being carried out, Mr. Jennings turned into a full cult leader. He said, usher him out, take his microphone and usher him out. And so it really was a shameful spectacle to see. It was a shameful spectacle to see that even as black people, religion can be such a huge barrier to African unity. And it's sad to see that fundamentalist religion cannot use logic, cannot use reason, cannot use critical thinking. The only thing they have at their disposal is groupthink psychology. And when groupthink psychology is galvanized in the church, it can be just as dangerous as groupthink psychology in the Islamic community, groupthink psychology in the Jewish community, so on and so forth. Groupthink psychology in the atheist community, just as dangerous. So I just wanted to touch on this. I was glad to see that Mr. Vegas made a cross-cultural connection with young Pharaoh. He engaged the American platform that young Pharaoh has created. And it's good to see that we actually bridging the gap. We're bridging the gap between the Caribbean, the Bahamas, America, and we find that ultimately we are the same people. And I found it interesting that in the exchange between Mr. Vegas and young Pharaoh, Mr. Vegas was actually able to focus the conversation a bit more. Because while young Pharaoh was speaking in more general fashion, Mr. Vegas was making specific references to older religious texts. I think he spoke about etymology, but I remember him reading from I believe it was the Book of Wisdom. I'm not sure. But I mean, I used to read a lot of these texts as well. When I was studying like the Essene community, Gnosticism, the books of Adam, the Aquarian Gospel, the book of Maccabees. All these are texts that I peruse in my development as I began to study more history and more spirituality. So it was a good exchange, and I found that a lot of people are not really familiar with these types of information. All they really would know is what the pastor would have directed them to. So it was good to see that a popular figure engaged another figure with a platform, and they were able to discuss a matter that was really like a disheartening development. They can't even have a debate in the African community without people resorting to malice. So we need to address that as a people, because this type of divisiveness is not helpful to us at all. And we need to get rid of these polarizing and negative figures that would seek to create more confusion. But I don't mean get rid of them in any type of way. I just mean we need to stop giving so much credence to them and so much attention to them. Right? But just let me know what you all think about the live stream that young Pharoah and Mr. Vegas had. And let me know your thoughts about the Gino Jennings incident. If you didn't voice your opinion on my last video, let me know what's your opinion. But one love.